all of the excitement that Democrats have over Kamala Harris, it is going to be difficult to beat Donald Trump, and I want to give you an understanding of why.
So earlier today on CNN, they took a look at some hard polling data. And when I say hard, I mean like rock hard, like hitting your head on concrete. If you're a Kamala Harris fan, if you're a Democrat, if you think you've got the answer now to all of the electoral woes that you've been feeling for the last several months, knowing that Donald Trump is on a path to victory, well, you're not happy right now if you think Kamala Harris was the solution. Take a look at these devastating numbers.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton joining me now to run the numbers. There is a lot of excitement. We have not seen this kind of shift in tone from the Democrats in particular. I can't remember a time where we've been through something like this.
This has been the craziest month in American politics that I can possibly recall. It was less than a month ago that Joe Biden and Donald Trump were debating in the CNN debate.
Less than a month.
Less than a month. We had a failed assassination attempt. We had a president literally saying, no, I'm not going to run for re-election less than a month before the Democratic National Convention. But here is the thing, Sarah Seidner, for all of the excitement that Democrats have over Kamala Harris, it is going to be difficult to beat Donald Trump. And I want to give you an understanding of why. Let's take a look here just first at the favorable views of Donald Trump. We know that Donald Trump has historically been unpopular. But take a look now. After the Republican National Convention, in the ABC News Ipsos poll, he recorded his highest ever favorable rating at 40%. That's not a one-off. Take a look at the Quinnipiac University poll, 46%. That's the highest ever in that pollster. The fact is, Donald Trump is more popular now than he ever has been before. So yes, Democrats can make this switcheroo, but they're still going to have to beat Donald Trump, a Donald Trump who is stronger, Sarah, than he has ever been before.
It will be interesting to see how voters respond to all of this. Now, how is he doing relative to Harris, who did run at one point? What do those numbers look like?
Yeah, so let's take a look here, right? We've been focusing so much on how Harris was doing better than Biden in the polling, and that's true. If we take a look at the national average, what do we see? We see Donald Trump up by 1. That's a within the margin race, right? That's a close race. But remember, of course, in the national popular vote, Democrats tend to do better there than they've done in the Electoral College, at least when Donald Trump has been running for president. So last time around, when Joe Biden...
That's right. And let me just jump in here real fast so you can get context. If you watch our show on a regular basis, you know that, first of all, number one, we don't take a lot of polls too seriously right now anyway, although it is informative now that they've made this switch, this probably illegal switch that they've made on the top of their ticket, that it's, I think, reasonable to find out what people are thinking. But with regard to national polls, they're bogus for multiple reasons. The most important one is that's not how we elect presidents. We don't elect presidents on national polls or on a national election. We have a state-by-state election. So really the most important polling that we're going to see probably by Saturday or Sunday or Monday of next week are going to be those battleground state-by-state polls of Harris versus Trump, okay? That said, the last time a Republican won the national popular vote was, who can tell me, anyone out there? It was 2004, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, when George W. Bush won the presidency. In fact, the time he won it 4 years before that, in 2000, he did not win the national popular vote. In fact, even though we've had 2 terms of a Republican president with George Bush and 1 term of a Republican president with Donald Trump since 1992, the only time a Republican has won the national popular vote was in 2004. Going back to 1992, 88 was the last time George Bush's dad, George Herbert Walker Bush, won the national popular vote. Then George W. in 2004. And that's it, you guys. That's it. So it doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter if a Democrat is winning on a national basis. That said, look at this. Trump is still in the lead on a national basis. What it tells you is just how overwhelming the Republican position is as of now. It'll change. It can easily change. The state-by-state's the most important. The national poll is not as important. But if you're a Democrat right now and you're seeing Trump winning the national poll, you know you're in trouble.
Barely won in the Electoral College. He actually won the national popular vote by 4 points. So at this point, Donald Trump is running 5 points better. 5, that's a 5 of some sort. 5
Not a good
points
one.
better than he was 4 years ago against Joe Biden. So at this particular point, whether you look at the favorable ratings, whether you look at the horse race polling, we see that Donald Trump is doing significantly better than he was doing 4 years ago at this point. Kamala Harris is going to have to do better than this, of course, if she wants to win the popular vote, but more than that, if she wants to win the Electoral College, where she'll likely have to outperform how she's done nationally, because the fact is, if you got to tie it in the national popular vote, that is probably not good enough if you're Kamala Harris and you want to win the election against Donald Trump.
That's right. And that last point that he made there about what Biden did in the national polling in 2020, he won the national popular vote by 4 points. He won the Electoral College vote by that much. In fact, if just about 70,000 or 80,000 votes in 3 key states went in a different direction, he would have lost that election. And some people, based on how we saw the electoral integrity fall apart during the 2020 pandemic election, we would argue that probably that's exactly what did happen. But of course, we can't have any real legitimate recounts because there's no paper ballots. And I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. The point is, Biden barely won, and he was still winning 4 points ahead on the national on the national popular vote. Okay. As if that weren't bad enough, what happens when you dive into these numbers even further? You start pulling, okay, how's Kamala Harris doing with this voting block or that voting block? One message that we've heard from the media over the last several days is how popular she is with young voters. The Zoomers, the Gen Z. Have you seen this whole thing about Brat Summer and that she's really hitting it on TikTok and social media? She's the master of the memes, and the young people love that. Well, first of all, I just want you to know, and this is no insult to those of you who are in this 18 to 29 age group. We love you. We're glad you're part of our audience. You're smart. You enjoy watching alternative news media. And so don't take this the wrong way. But if you're going to lose any voting block out there and you're running for president, it's going to be the 18 to 29-year-olds, because you guys don't show up and vote the way other voting blocks do, the way other age demographics do. So even if Kamala Harris is doing well with the 18 to 29 vote, that doesn't really translate into electoral success necessarily if you look at elections for the last 40 years in this country. That said, she's not doing well with those voters either.
One man knows the answer, CNN senior data reporter Harry. And in this case, I say, the answer. What you've done is you've looked at the numbers since Sunday. What do they say?
Yeah, all this stuff about Brat Summer and all that jazz. So I want to take a look at Trump versus Democratic margin. Just remind folks where we were at the end of the 2020 campaign. Joe Biden won voters under the age of 35 by 21 points. What do we see with Kamala Harris? Well, she's still ahead, but the margin here is significantly less than what we saw with Joe Biden back in 2020. She's up by just 9 points. You may make the argument that was better than Biden was doing before he got out, but compared to that Democratic baseline, where Democrats have historically in presidential elections, at least this century, been carrying that young vote by 20 or more percentage points, she is way down from that. So if this is unique support among young voters, I would like to know what non-unique support is. Is it even worse than this?
Is she doing better than Biden was, though?
She was doing slightly better. Maybe Biden was up by, like 6 on average or 5. This is maybe slightly better, but this is not game-changing stuff, Mr. Berman.
All right, what have we seen in terms of motivation?
Yeah, so, the other thing is we talk about vote choice, right? But let's also talk about motivation, right? Because it's not just who you would support, it's whether or not you come out to the polls. And this, I think, is rather interesting. Do Democrats say they're more motivated to turn out after Biden left the race? Well, we do see a significant portion of Democrats who say yes, 39%. The thing I was interested in was it disproportionately younger voters who said that they were more likely to turn out or more motivated to turn out. And what we see here is it's 42%, not a big difference between 42 and 39%. So this idea, again, that the vice president has unique potential to dig in and get young voters to turn out, John, it's just not there in the numbers, despite all the internet memes that are going around.
At least not yet. And one of the issues has been, Harry, this trend, which I think you were among the first to point out. Young voters have changed or say they are changing in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, oftentimes it's difficult to go against the grain. Kamala Harris may be fighting uphill. So I want to look at party identification again. Voters under the age of 35. Go back to 2020. This is the Pew Research study. This is one of the best studies that we have. And look at that. 56% of young voters said that, in fact, they were Democrat. They identified as Democrat or lean Democratic. You look down at 2024, It's 49%. Look at the Republican jump from 39 to 49%. So when we say that Harris is doing worse than Biden, it's not that she's uniquely bad. It's rather she's fighting uphill. She's trying to fight against a wave that is going against the Democrats among young voters. And Harris may be unique in some ways. Maybe she does slightly better than the generic Democrat, but not all that much.
Yeah, what this was shaping up to be a generational shift. The question is, was it just about Biden or was it about his administration? We may find out soon.
We may find out soon, but at this particular point, it doesn't look like Harris is going to be able to fight against the grain too much, Mr.
Harriet, and thank you very much.
It's about, if I may, because listen, I'm not any high-paid CNN analyst or anchor, but I can see what's going on in front of my face. As bad as this economy is, as horrible as inflation is, as disaster it is for anybody to have to buy or refinance their home mortgage, it's that much worse for anyone from the age of 18 to 39, or even worse for 18 to 29. Listen, for people who are over 40, who already have kind of an established career, an established salary, and they've sort of settled into what their monthly budgets are going to be, they can adjust quickly when the economy takes a tank. But if you're just starting out, if you're just getting your career going, if you're dealing with having to save money to buy a house and you see interest rates going from 2.5% to 7.5%, if you see the cost of every single thing that you need to get through the month increase by 20% when your salary did not increase, you're feeling it harder than anyone. That's what it's about. And a lot of those people between the age of 18 and 39, certainly if they're 25 to 39, they have very real memories of what this economy and what our country was like just 3.5 years ago. And now they have a choice to do a do-over. One other thing, this whole idea that Kamala Harris is this great master of the meme. And first of all, I find it rather insulting to younger voters that they're going to cast their lot for president based on who's churning out the best, coolest memes. But if that's the case, is there ever a greater meme president than Donald Trump? You're really going to tell me that Kamala Harris is the master of the presidential memes? Look at Trump. The man is a walking, talking meme, for crying out loud. Every time. Did you see this week he did this YouTube video with the professional golfer where the two of them did an hour-long video to raise money for charities for Wounded Warriors Project, and they tried to beat 50 on a golf course, and he was amazing. And that's the kind of, I mean, more people saw that than are going to see any Kamala Harris ad or Kamala Harris rally this week. And that Donald Trump has become a part of the American culture and the cultural lexicon. Did you see the baseball players who, the one guy from the Tampa Bay Rays, he hit a double, and when he got to the second base, he turned to the dugout and went, fight, fight, fight. There was a Philadelphia Phillies player. No, excuse me. God, sorry, you don't want to confuse any other team with the Phillies because Philadelphia fans, am I right? A St. Louis Cardinal player hit like a 3-run homer, and as it was rounding third, he turned to the dugout and he put his hand over his ear like he got shot in the ear, and he did this. I mean, Donald Trump is a meme, and he has become woven into the American pop culture lexicon. It's going to be a lot for Kamala Harris to fight against that if memes are what these voters are looking for. Frankly, I'm old-fashioned. I think these voters are looking to have a job that pays them well and inflation down to a place where they can actually afford to live a good life in America. And, oh, by the way, walk around a major city without having to constantly look over the shoulder because they're afraid they're about to get sexually assaulted or murdered, or you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, things are not good for Kamala Harris right now. And just by changing the star quarterback on your team, if you still have a terrible playbook and you still have a terrible offensive line and you don't have any receivers, and I don't know how far I can take this analogy, but you know what I'm saying. Just switching the driver of a broken down car is not going to let you win the race. Kamala Harris may be something new and something fresh, and she may not trip over a teleprompter, but the Democratic Party and the Biden-Harris administration have a serious message problem, and Donald Trump right now is still in command of this race.